All right, welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We're studying chapter 5, Perek Hey, in Sha'ar HaYichud V'Emunah, which is the second section of Tanya. And as we discuss every week, every single chapter in Tanya, first, second section, the whole Tanya, since it's the Bible of mysticism. So this is the foundation of mysticism. Every chapter is unique, every chapter is special, and every chapter has foundations for us to really be able to have a good head start and a good foundation for future study of anything we want to study in mysticism. So today we're going to be studying chapter 5, and the main theme, amongst, there's always obviously other themes as well, is that when a person studies Torah, you have the ability to connect to the infinite light of God. So again, when we study Torah, shalom, welcome, come have a seat. We connect to the infinite light of God. So the Alter begins chapter 5 with a continuation of what the Alter began last week studying and teaching us that when it comes to the tzimtzum, the concealment of God's light, so the Alter says that the tzimtzum of God's light, the concealment of God's light, is, he uses the analogy of an light, and a keli, and a vessel, which is a revolutionary idea in tzimtzum, because normally when you think of a tzimtzum, what do you think of? So the beginning of chapter 4, the Alter started off and said, for example, you have the shemesh. So the shemesh, when the sun is giving off light, that's light. Wow! And not only that, the shemesh is extremely strong. We can literally burn up. So God had to create a tzimtzum, and the term the Alter used in the beginning of the chapter 4 is that there's a nartek. There's a shield. And because you have a shield that blocks the light, so therefore the light is less intensity, and less of the energy and the power of the light that gets revealed, and therefore we're able to handle the shemesh. That's the same way the Alter explains. That's the idea of Hashem Elokim, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Hashem Elokim. The Yud Kei Vav Kei refers to the infinite power of God, and Elokim refers to what? The idea of the tzimtzum. But then the Alter introduces something revolutionary in the beginning, in the end of chapter 4, which is the beginning of a parenthesis which continues throughout chapter 5. So chapter 5 is part of a parenthesis which the Alter is charted in chapter 4, and over there the Alter says that the tzimtzum goes under the category of what? Of kalim, vessels. Which, this is a revolutionary idea, and that is as follows. What did the Alter start off in chapter 4, before the parentheses? He said that the tzimtzum is basically a shield. That means, if you look at the shemesh, right? The shemesh is there to give light. Obviously too much for us to handle. But the shield, what does the shield do? It blocks the sun from coming out, and little pieces, make it, figure out a way to escape through. But again, the purpose, if you look at a shield, do we like the shield or we don't like the shield? What's your initial reaction?
Without the shield, we don't.
Now you're ready, you're thinking. I said your initial reaction. So we have to sometimes be simple. Do you like the shield or you don't like the shield?
I don't like it.
Why would you like the shield? It's blocking the light. True, if you think deeper, it's fine. It's for your benefit. But the initial reaction when you see a shield, hey, it's not letting me do it. So the initial reaction of a shield is not great. Fine. We think and we were told and it's better for you. So intellectually and emotionally we try to massage our feelings and say, you know what, it's really, really good for you. But that's not our initial reaction. The initial reaction, we want it. The minute you have a shield, it's a negative. What does a negative do? It doesn't do anything. The sun is here and it accomplishes. Just like Yud Kei Vav Kei, the way if you view it from as the sun giving off light, wow, that's great, God's giving everything. Oh, God's not giving, we look at it like what? Like a shield. We don't like this Elokim. Comes along the Alter and the Alter says, no. There's another way to look at the shemesh and the mogain, not as a mogain, but he uses a different term which is called a keli, which is a vessel. Now when you look at a vessel, so let's think of any vessel. You have a cup, an 8-ounce cup, a 16-ounce cup, a bowl, any vessel, a vessel. When you look at a vessel, what do you see? Good or bad? It's good. I have a vessel, I have a cup, I can go take a drink of water, tea, coffee, whatever you like drinking. Starbucks, not going to advertise Starbucks here, but, right, whatever you like drinking. Is there any other stores everyone likes? We can do some promo for another store, right? Get some ads in. Okay. No, but all kidding aside, if you have a vessel, no one walks in and says, huh, that's restricting. Hey, can I have a cup of this? You even call it, can I have a cup of this, right? Can I have a cup of that? Can I have a bowl of this, right? If you had a negative neuroassociation, your negative reaction to a cup or a bowl, you wouldn't talk, can I have a cup of that? We talk, our language is, please, obviously, can I have a cup of this, a cup of that? What size cup do you want? 8 ounce, 16 ounce, whatever, 10 ounce cup. What kind of bowl, a big or small, and so on and so forth. So our association with a bowl or a cup, and again, in the terms of Kabbalah, a keli or a vessel, is positive or negative? Positive. Why? Let me ask you a question. You only a cup? You got a cup from wherever the store is for 8 ounces? Infinite. What do you mean 8 ounces cup?
Give me more.
Well, but we don't think that way. Why don't we think that way? Because the reality is we're living in this world, and we can't have an infinite amount of water, coffee, tea, or drinks, or soup, or whatever you put into any vessel, plate, any bowl. We are finite, so we need to have a finite measure of something to enjoy it. In other words, as we know it says in Talmud and mysticism, Tainug Tmidi Einer Tainug. Someone that has a consistent pleasure sees it to be a pleasure. We're living in the world. Things have to have a defined amount, a defined space, a defined time. We need things in a vessel. We need single serve, double serve, fine, a double portion, but you still need a portion, you still need a vessel. So the way we view a keli, good thing. Now let me ask a question, is a keli restrictive or not restrictive? Huh?
Restrictive.
Sure it's restrictive. Sure it's restrictive. Because it's only a certain amount. It's only this amount of ounces, pounds, whatever the size of the vessel is. But you don't see it that way. By a shield, your initial reaction, it's stopping the light. So I have to explain to you it's for your good. Because what you're really seeing is, which is a shield. A shield blocks. It doesn't do anything. So you have to say it's there to block to help you. By a vessel, it's a whole different approach. A vessel's, wow, I can enjoy it. And I actually like having the right amount and the right size and so on and so forth. So the initial reaction of a vessel is, it's a good thing. But if you look deeper, is a vessel really a good thing? I don't mean to confuse you guys, but is it really a good thing or not? No, it's restrictive. We can go back and forth, but it's really good, but it's really not good. In other words, in the truth, we're living in a materialistic world, we need that. But our initial reaction is, hey, it's a great thing, it's a vessel. That's what the Alter Rebbe finished off in the last chapter, and again, starting of the brackets, which continues into this chapter. So based on this, again, you're holding with me? Based on this revolutionary idea, that the Alter Rebbe says that we don't look at the restrictive part as a shield, which will give us a negative neuroassociation. We look at it like a vessel. Like a cup full of blessings. So once you look at it like a cup, like a keli, now what do you see? You see a blessing. You see something that's useful. Even though it does the same job as a shield, but it's a whole different packaging to it. So based on that, the Alter Rebbe starts of this chapter and he says, now we can understand something which bothers a lot of people, and that is as follows. When God originally created the world, so God had a novel idea. He wanted to create a world with us human beings, a materialistic world, a finite world. So therefore he had to create a tzimtzum. A tzimtzum means concealment. Now, the Medrash tells us that when God originally wanted to create the world, so we know that God has many attributes. God is infinite God, but he has the God of Chesed, he has the God of Gvura, he has the God of Rachamim. So God originally wanted to create the world, he wanted to create it with what? With din. Judgment. That's what he wanted to create the world. Discipline, law, order, balance, rules. And God said, no. God, obviously, the good thing with God is he can see ahead. and he can see he doesn't have to wait for the process to happen to say, oh my gosh, it's not working. He can say, okay, let me do it this way. God has X-ray vision. He can see what's going to happen if we do it that way, even before it happens. And he goes, ooh, great, home run. In other words, God can see the winning lottery tickets before you pick them. You have to still pick them, but he can see what you're going to pick. Again, another whole discussion for itself. But the point is, so God says, let me create the world with Midas Hadin. Judgment. So God right away looks ahead and goes, no, not going to work. Why? Too strict. People can't handle it. Just, people want freedom. People are going to totally rebel. It's not going to work. So God said, you know what? It's not going to work. I'm going to create the world with what? With rachamim. Compassion. Compassion. Now, we'll talk about compassion in a second. Let's just, what God actually ended up creating the world with. Let's go back a second here. What did God originally planning on, what did God want to create the world with? Which attribute? Din? Judgment? So the question is asked, the Alter Rebbe says, why would God, a loving God that cares about us, creating a beautiful world, wants to give everything. It's like a father that wants to give to his child anything and everything. Why would he even think for a moment to create the world with Midas Hadin?
Restrict us.
In other words, you want to know, fine, at the end he chose a different path. But what was his thought to begin with? Why would he even think to create the world with Midas Hadin? Where did that come from? And the Alter Rebbe says, based on what the Alter Rebbe explained last week in chapter 4, that what is din? It's really a vessel. So when you look at a vessel, it's really so you should be able to enjoy your coffee. It shouldn't be too much or it shouldn't be too little. And you should be able to enjoy your dinner with your bowl of soup, and it shouldn't be too much and too little. So the purpose of a vessel is so we fine human beings should be able to enjoy. So when you, for example, have an 8-ounce, you say I want to have an 8-ounce cup of coffee, tea, water. Think about that. Is that chesed or is that din? What is that? Chesed is, give me 150 ounces.
Oh,
right? So when I say I want 8 ounces, think about it. Anytime you say I want 8 ounces, 10 ounces, that's coming from din. I'm making a strict judgment. It's not negative, it's not harsh, it's basically restrictive. So anytime you want something in a vessel, anytime you want a portion of something, right? Whether, again, it could be food, it could be any money, it could be whatever it may be, fun, whatever you're trying to do. Anytime it's quantifiable, it's din, it's judgment. So the Alter Rebbe says, based on what the Alter Rebbe explained, that a keli is tzimtzum. That means when you look at a quantifiable thing, and you look at din, how do you look as din? If you look at it as a vessel, is it a negative thing? Not at all. So in other words, what God originally wanted to create the world, he gave a look and he said, guess what? I want to create the world with din. Let's use our language. I want to create it with vessels. Walk over, take your serve. Whatever the serve is in reference to. Take your quantifiable measurement that you can enjoy. So based on that, is there a problem with doing that? No. And that's why God wanted to create the world that way. So God wanted to create the world from din, meaning say it should be a keli, a vessel, quantifiable. So in other words, it's not that the idea was a bad idea to begin with. It was a great idea. It was a great idea based on the Kabbalistic insight that din is not negative, din is not harsh, din is what? It's a keli. It's a vessel. And a vessel is something we can use and enjoy and cherish and appreciate. And something which the hat fits the right head. Every single person has the right hat to fit his head.
A cup full of blessing.
A cup full of blessing. Okay. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, so what happened? But God saw it's not, in a world like that, it's not going to last. You need to have something more in the world. For the world to tick, for the world to not be a robotic world, for the world to be a world where there's excitement, there's action, there's passion, there's connection. There's something more than just getting up in the morning and going through the day and going to sleep at night and etc. To have a little more excitement and passion and spirituality and holiness and something out of the box. God said it's not going to work from din. It's good, it works, but not for the world to live, for people to find meaning and purpose in their life. Din is not going to work. Even though it's a keli, and even though it's something which I look, oh, this is what I like. That's good, but not good enough. So God said, I have to create the world with what? Which midah? The midah of rachamim, compassion. So it comes along, the Alter Rebbe says, and this is a revolutionary idea of mysticism, what is rachamim? So you look up in the Hebrew English, it's compassion, passion. What does that mean practically? So the Alter Rebbe says that rachamim is two things. Two things. What's the rachamim God put in the world? You know, it's to give the world a little more life. Not a little, a lot more life. To give the world life. Rachamim. What's rachamim? So the Alter Rebbe says, you know what rachamim is? God put into the world tzaddikim. That's one thing. I'll take both and I'll translate and I'll explain. And oisais umoisim shebetorah. In other words, God put in the world tzaddikim. What's a tzaddik? A tzaddik is somebody who sees the world, so to speak, a handbreadth above the way we see it. What does that mean? We see the world, this is a table, and this is a chair, and I have my restrictions, this I could do, and this I can't do, and I did this already yesterday, and I'm not going to succeed, and all the reasons why you're a loser, and all the reasons why it's going to fail, and a tzaddik comes along, and a tzaddik, we know, we learned in Tanya already, and we studied many times, Mr. Tzaddik b'emunasi yichya, tzaddik comes and inspires you to live a life of what? Of faith. Whole different life. So rachamim, the Alter Rebbe says, is that God put into this world tzaddikim, righteous people that allow you and inspire you to live a life of faith. Now when you're living faith, guess what happens to that vessel? You thought you can only do this. And the tzaddik says, guess what? You can do more. You thought, that's it, your life is over, and you're going to have this challenge, and who knows what's going to happen to you, and now you have to be afraid of this one, that one. The other one comes along, the tzaddik, and the tzaddik tells you, guess what? Who runs the world? God runs the world. You don't see it? That's the job of the tzaddik. Pick you up a little bit. And guess what? You know, when you're living in this world, what do you see? You see the room. You take a little plane, fly up a little, all of a sudden you see the whole Fort Myers. You go a little higher, you see the whole county. A little higher, you see the whole state of Florida. Then you see the United States, and before you know it, the whole world looks like one dot. And you got all excited from one little tree that might fall in your car. Right? So the tzaddik's job is elevate you a little bit. Have faith. Who runs the world? Not me, not you. I mean, you can choose if you want to think you run it, but we don't run the world. God runs the world.
See the blessing in it.
That's rachamim, because that allows us to live out of the box. And the second thing God gave, miracles and signs of the Torah, not the ones that people made up, but real miracles. The Torah says the miracle when things go out of nature, when God reveals himself out of nature, you know what happens all of a sudden? Now you realize, oh my gosh, this like mental block I had, that I only had a certain amount of hours of the day, and how am I going to learn an extra hour Torah study, and how am I going to go and do this mitzvah when I don't even know how I'm going to have the money to pay my rent, and all of a sudden, when you do what God wants, all of a sudden somehow things magically happen. How did that happen? And the answer is, it comes from the midah. Which midah? Not from din, because din is 1 + 1 is 2. Rachamim says 1 + 1 is whatever it has to be. Whatever it has to be. So if you live by din, 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. If you're here, you can't be there. But if you live by rachamim, so you're living on a whole different reality. You're living by tzaddikim, with the inspiration of a tzaddik. You're living in the inspiration of miracles, right? Of the Torah. What does that mean, of the Torah? It means as long as you study Torah and you do mitzvot and you pray, guess what? God will take care of you, as it says throughout Hayom Yom. Our job, what did God do? God went ahead and took a infinite world and made it materialistic, made it finite. What's our job? To take the finite world and make it infinite. When we do a mitzvah, when we pray, and we study Torah, what do? We're taking this finite world and we're peeling off the boundaries. There are no borders. There are no borders.
Let go and let God.
Let go and let God in. Okay. Now, so in other words, when we follow the inspiration and advice of a tzaddik, when we are in tune to the miracles of the Torah, we have the ability to connect to the midah of rachamim, and now we really start living. Now we really start living. Now, so here comes the Alter Rebbe and he says, hold on a second. I just took you on a flight out of this world. Why? Because right now we know what's going to happen. Guess what? There's no right, there's no left. We're living at a level of miracles, right? We're living at a level of miracles. So if you're living in a level of miracle, there's no morning, there's no night, there's no right, there's no left. In Kalim, there's a right, there's a left, there's a beginning and the end, right? In the world of miracles, in the world where a tzaddik sees it, you just do the right thing. There's no right, there's no left, there's no morning, right? There's no limit. But on the other hand, the Alter Rebbe says, hold on a second, the Torah was given to us to do mitzvot in this world. For example, tefillin, mezuzah, kashrut, these are all materialistic things. Studying Torah is quantifiable, and you sit with the book and you study Torah. So how do the two work together? Are we supposed to jump out? Or are we supposed to sit in the world? If we're sitting in the world, then we're back to judgment. Limitations. If we're jumping out of the world, then how do we do the mitzvot? How do you mesh the two together? So comes along the Alter Rebbe and he brings from the Zohar, and the Zohar says, and this is very, very important, that in holiness, in Kedusha, it's not either chesed, and if it's chesed, we're doing kindness, we're just doing kindness, and there's no discipline. Or if it's gvura, if it's limitation, there's no kindness. The Zohar says in Kedusha and holiness, you ready for this? Chesed and gvura can sit in the same spot. Wow, that's a new curve wall. That's what the Alter Rebbe say. If it's din, so it's judgment. If it's chesed, boom, there's no limits. Here the Zohar says, no. Chesed and gvura in the same pot. Chesed and gvura is in the same thing. What does that mean? That means like this. Take Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a tzaddik. Tzaddik. What does it mean he's a tzaddik? Let's go on a little journey. We know that when God created the world, so there's the infinite God. Infinite God. In the world of infinite, is there chesed and gvura? No, it's infinite. There's no limits. But then God decided to create a materialistic world. So when God decided to create a materialistic world, so you don't go from infinite to tables and chairs. I mean, you need to have some kind of step-down transformer. So God created there's many, but for this conversation, 4 step-down transformers. The first where he went from infinite, and he created the first level of away from infinite, of infinite. It's called the world of Atzilut. It's a world, but it's so close to God that it's still, it's all about God. In the world of Atzilut, the only thing you see is God and godliness. Then you have the world of Bria, where already God created something. So it's not so close to God, but there's already a creation. It's creating its own identity. Then you have the world of Yitzir. It's not only an identity of a creation, but there's already a formation. And then you have the world of Asiya. There's something here. You can call this a table rather than calling it God. Now that's like from the world of Atzilut to the world of Asiya. It's a big spread. In the world of Atzilut, God, 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 God. In the world of Asiya, table, chair, me, you, him, her, etc. Wow! But it went through four different steps. Now, when a soul comes down to this world, it takes 9 months to journey from when the husband and wife are together and they conceive until the soul comes down to this world. In those 9 months, where is the soul sitting? The world of Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya. And the answer is very simple. It can go, and this is where everyone ends up being different. It goes through a journey, all 4 worlds. But in the 9 months, it could spend, I'm going to give you one extreme. It can spend 95% of the time in the world of Atzilut, and the last 5% of the time, it flies through Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, comes out to this world. So it never got a chance really to cultivate. I'll give you an extreme case. Let's call that neshama of Atzilut. It walks into this world, it's totally oblivious to anything physical. Even though it's living here, the only thing it sees is what? Materialism, God, spirituality, that's it. That's one type. Or the other extreme is someone that spends, as soon as parents conceive, it hangs out in the world of Asiya. Right? And then boom, it comes out into this world. So when it comes out into this world, only thing it wants is materialism. Physical things, food, money, honor, anything physical. Two different, anything spiritual, totally like talking Chinese. And then you have hundreds, thousands, millions of combinations, depending on where the soul was hanging out in the journey down to this world. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, and then even though you're created in a certain way, a certain bearing based on where you hung out before you came down to this world, but you could work on yourself to be more spiritual. You can obviously work on yourself to be more physical. It's a process. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, we call him a neshama of Atzilut. He came down to this world. The only thing he saw was God and godliness. Matter of fact, in the Torah, when God says to him, give the people food, you're the leader. Moshe said, me, what do I have to do with food? He really didn't understand why people have to eat. Fine, you don't want to die, so you need something. But he didn't, the whole concept of eating, I mean, can you imagine today if Moses was around, you think he'd walk into a restaurant? Waste time sitting there, waiting. It's not in his dictionary. So Moshe Rabbeinu was in the neshama of Atzilut. So the Rebbe asks, Alter asks, so how do you do mitzvot? So the Alter explains, and he says, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was in the world of Atzilut, but when he came down to this world, he basically came down into this world of Asiya, but he had to go out of the world of Atzilut to have an effect in this world. He had to go out of the world of Bria, that's first of all. So even in the world, he had to step down into the world of Bria, which probably was uncomfortable for him, but he had no choice. He stepped into the world of Bria. That's what Alter explains. Secondly, we all have the 10 Sfirot. The three intellect, Chacham Bina Das, Chesed Gvur Tiferes, and that's a Chod Yesod Malchut. Chabad is the intellectual Sfirot. Chesed Gvur Tiferes is the emotional Sfirot. Netzach Chod Yesod Malchut are the functional emotional Sfirot. And again, you need a class to discuss it in depth. But even though Chesed and Gvur, where it's the same, Moshe Rabbeinu, even when he came down to this world, he had to manifest himself through the world of Bria. And he had to manifest himself, reach out to people through the Sfirot of Netzach, Hod, Yesod, etc. So in other words, so since Moshe Rabbeinu went through, even though again he's in a neshama of Atzilut, to him it's all God and godliness, but he had to force himself to clothe himself into the world of Bria, and to manifest himself through the lower spirit of Netzach, Hod, Yesod. So therefore he was able to physically put on that pair of tefillin, put up the mezuzah, eat kosher, study Torah down to earth about a cow and a chicken, whatever they were studying in the world of Torah. Because ultimately, mitzvos happen where? In this world. So in other words, his source was from Atzilut. He saw God and godliness and everything. But he had to force himself to live in this world by coming down into the world of what? Bria, and there in the level of Netzach, Hod, Yesod. So that deals with one issue, how tzaddikim relate to this materialistic world, is because they force themselves to connect, not necessarily in the world of Asiyah, they don't become materialistic, but they step down from the world of Atzilut to at least one step down to Bria, and they step down from Chesed Gvura down to Netzach, Hod, Yesod. But then the Alter Rebbe says, fine, that's correct. But what happens, we know that after 120, the tzaddik can go up to Gan Eden. Now, if Gan Eden becomes back to a spiritual place, so how do they manifest God and godliness in the world of Gan Eden? So the Alter explains like this: that what happens is in the world of Gan Eden, God reveals Himself, and true, it's Chesed and Gvur together. So therefore, it's the infinite light of God. But what happens is, there's when the tzaddikim or anyone in this world, and this is extremely important, anyone in this world sits and studies Torah. So whether you're studying Torah in the morning and the night and the afternoon, and that's why you'll see why it's extremely important to study Torah. You create something which is called a rakia. A rakia is like a certain beautiful veil. You ever go to a wedding and the bride has a beautiful veil? So a veil is made up of very, very fine material. It's actually expensive. As a matter of fact, the most Hasidic weddings, they get a special veil that would different materials, and they get a veil that a Rebbetzin used because there's a lot of Kabbalistic power to the veil. But when a person sits and studies Torah in this world, you are creating, I don't know if you know this, but now you'll find out, anytime you sit and study Torah, whether you open a Chumash, you open a Mishnah, you study some Talmud, you read some Medrash or some Kabbalah mysticism, whether you open a book or you listen to a class online or on the internet, and you're actually studying Torah, using your head to think about what you're studying, and use your mouth, you're saying what you're studying, you get excited about it, you are actually creating, guess what? Today it's popular in your work. Today, I think most companies don't even give any more checks anymore. They do automatic deposits into your bank account. So you never see the check, so how do you know you got paid? Because it's such a concept, automatic deposits. When you study Torah, you're creating an automatic deposit into your spiritual bank account. Now where's the money? And the answer is, it creates this rakia, this veil. And the veil is created from the 22 letters of the Torah, because there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So either you're saying the words or you're listening to the words. The words are made up of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So as you're studying Torah, you're creating this beautiful veil for yourself. That what happens is after 120, when you go to Gan Eden, what is the aura around you? The aura around you is from the veil that you created while you were in this world. So if you go through this world and you don't spend a minute studying Torah, guess what happens? You come to heaven, all the whole Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, whatever, all the holy people are sitting there and they have this gorgeous veil, and you're like sitting there with a kala with no veil. Can you imagine a kala sitting without a veil? That would be kind of embarrassing, right? Every kala needs a veil. But so we are going to be the kala when we come after 120, and we're going to be sitting there either with a gorgeous veil or with no veil. Who created the veil? We! Every class, everyone sitting here has some kind of veil because you're sitting in class, right? But the thing is, you want it to be nicer and fluffier and more strands and more, beautiful pieces to it. What do you think? Think about it. Why do you think Kala spend so much, why do they spend so much time in the gown and the veil and they go shopping and because you want physically it should be here, right? That's the same way you should be focused on your veil that you're going to have when the Messiah comes, or after 120 in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, everyone's going to be sitting over there. You want to have a nice veil. You can't buy it there. They don't sell veils in Gan Eden. You got to prepay. You got to buy it now. But you create it by saying the 22 letters of the Torah. By 22 letters. Now, how do you create that? Because Torah, and this is the power that Torah has. This is the power Torah has. In Deuteronomy, we just started Deuteronomy this week. The end of Deuteronomy, when Moshe Rabbeinu blesses, so it says over there, before he died, he blesses, he says, and he uses a term with reference to Torah, he says, Mi minoi, from the right, Eish, a fire. So right is right, Eish is fire is always on the left. Das Lamoi is referring to the Torah. That means the Torah has the power of the right, has the power of the left. Hold on a second, power right and left, it's either right or left. A vessel, it's either, if you have a vessel, it's either 6 ounces or 8. Can I tell you, okay, can I please have a coffee? What size? 6, 8 ounces. They'll tell you, do you want 6 ounces? Do you want 8 ounces? I want 6, 8 ounces. Hello, make up your mind. You want 6, you want 8. There's no saying 6, 8. It's either 6 or 8, right? But the answer is, you're right. In a materialistic world, it's either 6 or it's either 8. In the spiritual world, you can have a 6 and you can have an 8 together. It's actually even deeper. You can have a 6 and an unlimited together. I want to have a 6 and I want an unlimited. That the guy will really go crazy in the store. Give me an 8-ounce cup with unlimited. Hello, how am I? 8-ounce cup, unlimited water. Hello, you want to make a flood in the store? How's it going to work? So you're right. In the materialistic world, it doesn't work. But in Torah has the power. Mi minoi. It's right. That means unlimited. Eish. It can contain unlimited. Torah has the power. How does it work? I don't know. I can't explain it. But we do know that Torah, when a person sits and studies Torah, think about it. When you're studying Torah, whose Torah are you studying?
God.
God's Torah. God's finite or infinite?
Infinite.
Infinite. So, but who's studying Torah? You. You're finite. Your intellect is finite. Your wisdom is finite. So your finite intellect and wisdom is taking in this infinite wisdom. How does that work? Don't try to explain it because you're not going to be able to. No, because it's an impossibility for us humans to explain finite and infinite merging. But guess what? It's irrelevant whether you can explain it or understand it. When you study Torah, you are creating a fusion of infinite and finite that never existed, never will exist. Only in this moment you're studying Torah, and you have the power, any time you study Torah, to create that beyond explainable, understandable concept of fusing infinite with finite. How does it work? Unlimited. I don't know. But it does work. It's like, for example, Torah is called what? Is like das, right? So you know you have chesed, gvura. You have chachma, bina. What's das? Das can handle both. Das is a center sphere. It can handle the chachma, it can handle the bina. In other words, Torah has the power, it handles both. So when a person in this world, in this physical world, studies Torah, we'll talk about mitzvot in a minute. When you study Torah, so you're taking the Torah, you're internalizing it within you. Internalizing means internalizing your finite self, but you're internalizing what? Infinite wisdom. You are creating a rakia, a veil for yourself, which is, guess what? It's beyond infinitely beautiful. Because anything that you see that's beautiful has a finite beginning, finite end. Something that has like a magical, infinite, finite blend, which is beyond human comprehension and creation, we can't create it. The only one created by studying Torah. That is real beauty. That is real beauty.
That's the miracle.
That is a real miracle. So in other words, because ultimately the vessel which we're doing and studying Torah has also power, and we're studying the infinite Torah of God. So what happens is, in Gan Eden, guess what happens? Is it finite or is it infinite? And the answer is what? It's both. But where is it getting the power to be both? Torah study. So when a person studies Torah today in this world, you have the power to connect to the infinite light that creates real savings and deposits into your spiritual world after 120 in Gan Eden that will create this beautiful veil for yourself. So now the Alter Rebbe says, okay, I got it. When I study Torah in this world, because Torah is not limited to one side, right or left, Torah is right, Torah is left, right? Miminoi eish, right and left, it's all mixed together because it's infinite, but it has the power that it goes into your finite brain and therefore it creates the veil. That's great in terms of Torah. What happens with mitzvot? In other words, what's the idea with mitzvot? If when I do a mitzvah, I'm doing the infinite light of God, so how do I do a mitzvah in a materialistic world? And if it is infinite, how can I do a physical mitzvah? The Alter explains like this. There's a major difference between Torah and mitzvot, and that's as follows. When a person studies Torah, so what do you use to study Torah? How do you study Torah?
Your eyes.
Your eyes, correct.
Your mind.
Your mind. Oh, so when you study Torah, you're using your mind. Now when you use your mind, you think about it. Now your mind is where? Outside of you or inside of you? Inside of you. So you think about it, you understand it, you get it, and then you're not only that, but hopefully you even get excited about it. So Torah is something that we internalize. Torah is something we internalize. Torah is extremely powerful. Now the only way we can actually internalize it, because God created it in such a powerful way that it's powerful, but it can handle our finite mind. Otherwise our mind would have our circuit would blow. Now, and the reason why it has to have that special quality, because Torah is right and left. Well, what happens when a person does a mitzvah, take any mitzvah that you do, take them and put on tefillin. Is it external or is it internal? It's external. Put up mezuzah. Is it external or internal? External. Any mitzvah that one does is always external. It's external of you. You're doing a mitzvah. You're doing means there's me, I'm doing a mitzvah. Any one of these 248 positive or the 367 negative, I'm doing a mitzvah. Now, a mitzvah is also, because it's not internal, it's either a right, like I'm doing, chesed, or I'm not doing, gvura, right? I'm holding back. So it's either one side or the other. Now, because it's one side or the other, so the mitzvah, on one hand, is God's mitzvah, it's limited, it's an infinite mitzvah, but on the other hand, it's limited. But the reason why the mitzvah we're able to do, and it does not, so to speak, totally throw us off, is because a mitzvah is done externally, so ultimately it does not get internalized, and therefore we can do mitzvot, whether it's the positive mitzvot or the negative mitzvot we don't do, and because it's considered a garment, it's a lavush, therefore, even though it has the infinite light of God, it does not throw us off. It doesn't totally blow us out. Why doesn't it blow us out? Again, because mitzvot are external. So, you see here clearly what the author is saying in this chapter, that ultimately the light is extremely powerful, but the vessel is also powerful, and you need the light and you need the vessel not to block, to create an internalization, whether it's the mitzvah that creates an internalization but only from an external level, but with the Torah, more importantly, it allows you to take that within you, internalize it, the infinite light, and it creates a finite experience that we can handle, but ultimately creates the greatest blessing that one could create for themselves, which is basically a veil for themselves in the world to come. And therefore you see clearly by studying Torah, literally spending a half hour, an hour, as much as you can, studying Torah in this physical world, you are literally connecting to the infinite in this world right now when you're doing it. But more importantly, you're actually creating for yourself a beautiful veil for after 120 in Gan Eden, and you'll be sitting with this gorgeous veil that you yourself created. It's like a piece of art that you yourself created.